It's Wednesday, December 29th, and this is now on H&N.
By the time they were able to contain it, it was too late.
We just got new details into our newsroom on what might have led to the Red Hill water crisis.
Is leading to a tsunami of cases.
The U.S. hits the highest one-day record for COVID cases. I'm Deborah Alfarone at the White House with what the administration is specifically doing to try and stem the surge.
It was a crazy experience.
The nation's flightmare continues. Coming up, an update on the continued holiday travel headaches. These stories plus a look back at the life of football legend John Madden.
It's just super football. I mean, I love these kinds of games.
More on his legacy just ahead on This Is Now.
And welcome to This Is Now. We'll get right to the latest COVID numbers from across the state. The Department of Health reports 1,561 new infections with 3 deaths. Just over 1,300 of those cases are on Oahu. Lieutenant Governor Josh Green tweeted this morning that there are 132 people hospitalized, which is up from 112 yesterday. 60 of those in the hospital are vaccinated. And for more on today's top stories, here's Jonathan Soppy.
Thanks so much, Mark. We're going to have a lot more news regarding the pandemic in just a moment. But first, we're getting some brand new details into our newsroom about what led to the tainted water crisis. And we're hearing a lot about operator error. I want to play out a portion of an interview our Allison Blair just did with Lieutenant Governor Josh Green.
We did get to go and tour the whole facility and see where the accident occurred. So I don't think it's meant to be secret or anything. They were driving in what are these very long tunnels, which have pipes that kind of run up and down them where the fuel is moving between areas. And one gentleman did have an accident where they ran into a pipe and it damaged and caused basically a set of reactions inside the pipes that ultimately led to the leak. I believe this accident happened on or around November 20th. And by the time they were able to contain it, it was too late. There had been, somewhere between probably 12 and 14,000 gallons of fuel spilled, which we then were able to see in the Red Hill shaft, some significant amount of it. It got absorbed into the ground through a series of collection systems, but it got into the ground and then it got into the water table. They had not been fully aware earlier when they had their earlier spill in the spring that there was fuel that had been, sequestered in that pipe system. And what does this tell you? This tells you that in spite of good intentions on that worker's part and people are trying to be careful, there is the potential for human error at any time when you have an 80-year-old system that is this large and it's somewhat vulnerable. So a series of accidents had to occur, but they did occur. They will occur from time to time. And that's why people are, I think, wisely saying that the fuel should be better protected and put above ground. That's the crux of my argument, which is that as hard as you can try to keep this facility safe or a nuclear power plant safe or whatever that may be, there are potentials for human error, and the water is just too precious a resource. So I think that is one of the reasons ultimately the fuel will be moved above ground, but it was an accident by, a very good person, but an accident nonetheless.
We'll have much more on these developments coming up on later editions of H&N. Meanwhile, the Navy has until 5 p.m. today to contest the recommendation to shut down the Red Hill fuel storage facility and drain the massive tanks. The Board of Water Supply says if it doesn't happen, it may have to shut down 3 of its key water sources for good. The agency already took the Halava Shaft, Halava Well, and Iea Well offline earlier this month. Officials say those are at risk of contamination, and the wells won't be used again until BWS is 100% sure that the fuel won't migrate to them. There's a chance they won't reopen them at all if the Navy doesn't comply. And here's what the Navy had to say at a state Senate briefing just a short time ago.
The Navy is responsible for the contamination of the drinking water in our Navy distribution system and the Red Hill well. We use every means available to investigate it thoroughly, and there's a number of efforts on that. And we will take aggressive actions to correct the failures and to hold those at fault appropriately accountable once we've concluded those investigations. In the near term, we're committed to taking comprehensive measures to restoring safe drinking water in an environmentally safe manner. We're committed to fixing the Red Hill shaft well and to protecting the aquifer as we do that. And we're committed to put in place appropriate long-term measures to prevent any recurrence of these events.
So what I'm saying is that everything is all fine and dandy with you guys' flushing program and everything like that, but you guys still yet not even telling the public what is the future of those tanks. You guys still using the word fix, repair, all that kind of stuff. You guys not telling the community that you guys want to go ahead and get the fuel tanks out of Red Hill. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that we try to see here. You cannot fix something that you put a Band-Aid on something that you need surgery.
And it's not just here on the islands. COVID cases brought on by the Omicron surge are reaching record levels. Deborah Alfarone has more from the White House.
The U.S. is seeing a surge of new COVID cases as the country prepares for New Year's celebrations. The CDC reported yesterday hit an all-time high for the U.S. with more than 400,000 new cases. But as cases spike, the CDC is defending its decision to reduce quarantine from 10 days to 5 for asymptomatic COVID patients.
About 85 to 90% of viral transmission happens in those first 5 days, which is why we really want people to stay home during that period of time and then mask for the rest of the time to capture that last 10 to 15%.
While the White House has promised 500 million at-home COVID tests for free next month, there are some new questions about the effectiveness of the quick result antigen tests. The FDA is warning that the antigen tests may be less capable of detecting the Omicron variant, which could lead to false negatives. That's part of the reason why the CDC says a negative test is not required before coming out of isolation.
We don't know how this antigen performs with regard to predicting transmissibility towards the end of your period of infection.
The good news is the PCR test used at most testing sites is very reliable and can detect even tiny amounts of the virus. The bad news, lines are still long at most testing sites. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
The head of the World Health Organization says he's worried about the Omicron and Delta variants of COVID-19 combining.
Right now, Delta and Omicron are twin threats that are driving up cases to record numbers, which again is leading to spikes in hospitalizations and deaths. I'm highly concerned that Omicron, being more transmissible, circulating at the same time as Delta, is leading to a tsunami of cases.
Well, according to the Hawaii Pandemic Applied Modeling Work Group, cases of COVID-19 here on the island is only forecasted to get even higher. We talked to some of those researchers this morning on Sunrise.
Monique Chiba and Thomas Lee, they're part of the team and they join us now. Monique, Thomas, before we get to this, your numbers are a little startling, but I want to preface this by saying that it doesn't have to be that bad. We control part of this. But let's give us those numbers. How bad could it be?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having us. So yes, you touched the exact point. We entered a very high risk area, and right now we're projecting for Honolulu about 4,000, a little above 4,000 cases by the end of the year. But as you said, that's not an oracle, right? This is meant to be defeated, and we can do that together, either by mitigations or by individual behavior. The primary goal is not to attain those numbers. So now I'd like to highlight the fact that daily cases are very delicate to interpret right now. As you said, testing is quite volatile. Some days we have 10,000 reported tested, and then on the 25th and the 26th, we had only like 3,000, which is lower than what we had in August this year. So positivity is very high, and that's the concern. This is the metric that we're looking at now, is positivity and hospitalization rather than the daily cases.
Monique, you said 4,000 for Honolulu. What about the,
yes, that's correct.
Neighbor islands, the state as a whole? What do we expect?
Well, we are looking really at island by island because the Honolulu numbers are really dominating. Okay. So giving a number for the entire island is basically giving a number for Honolulu. So if you look at the other island for Hawaii, we're looking at for Hawaii County and Maui County, we're looking at 500 cases. And then for Kauai at a little above 200 cases, which is a lot compared to what they've had in the past.
How did you come up with this data?
Oh, it's a year and a half of work. We have two different models that have been peer-reviewed now. We have agent-based, we have compartmental model. We incorporated like competing variants. We incorporated travelers. We incorporated the vaccine. So it's been a long process and a work of a year and a half to get where we are now.
Yeah. And Steve, sorry to interrupt. Just one addition to Dr. Shiba. So, I want everybody to understand that the work that we've been doing, a labor of love, and also we're working with only publicly available data from our partners at DOH. So there's a lot of data that we don't have that could really influence and really increase our accuracy. Specifically breakdown of vaccinated versus unvaccinated hospitalizations, age demographics for the hospitalization. So which is really what we're focused on. Like Monique said, case counts are going to continue to increase, but really what we're focused on as the important metric for our policy leaders to pay attention to are really the hospitalizations, specifically across our neighbor islands, as their healthcare capacity is much more limited than Oahu County.
The travel surge from the holiday weekend is now becoming a week-long problem for passengers due to weather, staff shortages, and Omicron. Steve Patterson has the story.
The holiday travel nightmare that kicked off this weekend now creeping into the middle of the week as airports in Seattle and Chicago deal with dangerous weather, and New York, Denver, and LA airports continue to see heavy delays.
Yeah, I was supposed to have a flight out of here at 7:50 and they canceled it, and I'm here for 12 hours.
On Tuesday, over 1,100 U.S. flights were canceled, with thousands more delayed. Delta Airlines saying employees are working, quote, around the clock to reroute and substitute aircraft and crews, citing winter weather and Omicron for the problems. So what can you do if you're one of the many travelers whose plans are being disrupted? If you're already at the airport, get online and get on the phone. You'll want to talk to an airline representative as quickly as possible. If your flight is canceled, you can get on a later flight, or if you decide not to travel, you're entitled to a full refund under federal law. A refund may also be available if the carrier significantly delays your flight. But amid the travel chaos, one story is more bizarre than any delay.
It was a crazy experience.
School teacher Marisa Fatia was on her way to Iceland when she tested positive for COVID-19 during her flight.
I started having a severe sore throat. And so I just took my rapid test and I brought it into the bathroom, and within what felt like 2 seconds, there were 2 lines.
A flight attendant assisted Marisa, who opted to stay isolated in a tiny airplane bathroom for the remainder of the flight. 4 hours.
There's like 150 people on this flight. And my biggest fear was giving it to them.
And during Marisa's quarantine at an Iceland hotel, a Christmas gift from her cool-headed flight attendant.
And she brought me flowers and a little Christmas tree with lights so I could hang it. It was so heartfelt, and she's just an angel.
Former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has passed away. He was 82 and had battled pancreatic cancer for several years. The combative boxer turned lawyer was widely acknowledged as one of the toughest deal makers in Congress during a Washington career that spanned 34 years and included 5 terms in the Senate.
John Madden, one of pro football's most recognizable and legendary figures of the last 50 years, died yesterday. He was 85 years old, and Dan Sheneman has more on his remarkable legacy.
It's just super football. I mean, I love these kinds of games.
Although he never played a season of pro football, John Madden was synonymous with the NFL. After a knee injury ended his pro career during rookie training camp, he began to coach and was eventually named head coach of the Raiders at the age of just 33. He was young and he was a winner. His teams claimed 7 division titles and appeared in the playoffs 8 times. In 1976, his Raiders won Super Bowl 11. Madden was at the pinnacle of the NFL, but the stress of coaching caught up to him. Just 2 years after winning the Super Bowl, his Raiders failed to make the playoffs. He left Oakland as the youngest coach to win 100 games. When Madden stepped away from the sidelines, he stepped into the broadcast booth.
And emotion, John, is very much a part of this contest.
He was teamed with Pat Summerall for NFL games on CBS and later Fox. His voice was the soundtrack of NFL Sundays.
You can't make yourself one-dimensional against this defense.
Behind the mic, Madden could explain the game and connect with fans.
He had that great ability to make you want him come into your home and sit on the couch with you.
When Summerall retired, Madden moved on to Monday Night Football and later NBC's Sunday Night Football, where he was teamed with Al Michaels. Madden, who never liked to fly, traveled the country by bus. And when his bus arrived in town, it was an event.
Welcome back, everybody, here.
In 2006, after years of service to the game, John Madden was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame for his record as a coach.
You can't appreciate this any more than I do.
After 3 decades behind a microphone, Madden announced his retirement. He said, "It's time."
I strongly believe that this is the right time, this is the right thing, and you just do it.
To a generation of fans, Madden was not known as a coach or even as a broadcaster, but rather for a video game.
Bam! The blitz starts now.
Starting in 1988, Madden lent his name, voice, and personality to video game maker EA Sports. The Madden NFL series games were bestsellers and won Madden a new generation of fans. John Madden, a football life well lived. Dan Sheneman, NBC News.
And we just got some breaking news into our newsroom. Let me take you live now to New York City. This is outside a courtroom there. This is where British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell has just been found guilty of helping to lure teenage girls to be sexually abused by the late Jeffrey Epstein. The verdict announced today just capped off a month-long trial. Been followed very closely in the news. We're going to continue to follow this ourselves here at HNN and bring you the very latest coming up on later editions of HNN and, of course, on First at 4 and on all your HNN digital platforms. Again, this is a live picture from outside a New York City courtroom where Ghislaine Maxwell has just been convicted. Let's get it over to Guy Hockey now with more of your weather.
It's going to be another cloudy day today. We will have those breezy winds along with a few scattered showers, and that's why temperatures will still run a little cool today. And we still have that small craft advisory, and there might be some box jellyfish on the south shore, so heads up. That north shore swell is dropping out. It's no longer 6 to 8 feet. It's definitely maybe head high or smaller, but there's a reinforcing swell coming tomorrow, so look for that. And for today, the biggest waves are on the east side, but it's going to be rough and it's going to be choppy. So just a few showers today, not a lot of rain expected, but it will be cloudy and it will be cool. And then tomorrow, that disturbance drops in with more widespread rain. We could see some heavy rainfall for New Year's Eve. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have more details on air and online.
With New Year's on the way, the demand for sashimi is spiking, but the pandemic has changed the fresh fish market across the state. Casey Lund has more from Pier 38.
I'm with Michael Goto from the United Fishing Agency. Mike, it's so good to be back on the floor. Tell us kind of what's happening early this morning and how things have kind of changed over the pandemic.
Well, Casey, we're in the middle of our auction today. Basically, we're on the 5th boat, maybe of around 8 boats. So, a good amount of fish has come in for this holiday season. The price is, varying, maybe $9 to $10 a pound for premium mahi. Consumers can expect to pay, maybe around $25 to $30 a pound, I think, in the local retail establishment.
Now, when we were last here in September of 2020, I remember the fleet was kind of half operational, a lot of people down, a lot of people out of work. How has that changed?
So, Casey, we're back to max capacity as far as the fleet is concerned. They're operating basically at 100% because the market did come back in the middle of 2020, when the market just died because of the shutdown of restaurants, the shutdown of the tourism industry, it really flatlined the marketability of fresh seafood. But because we're fortunate enough to get through that and to get tourism back, to get restaurants reopened, the market came back almost immediately, and we've been running basically all of 2021 with that strong market.
Yeah, and I remember back then you had the Fish to Dish program, the city and county and the federal government stepping in to kind of help supplement that. Do you expect to need any more help, or do you think that we're kind of back up and running at this point?
It just really depends. With Omicron kind of coming back, we're all fearful of another shutdown. So if things are getting prepared for that, we'd definitely appreciate assistance in that regard. Everything could change again in one day, and that's what happened in 2020. In one day, the market just crashed out, just like the stock market.
Yeah. But as far as we're seeing here, things are looking pretty good, and you're going to have fish for your New Year holiday. Michael Goto from United Fishing Agency, thank you so much again. I want to mention that we've been wearing our masks. We've been following all the health and safety guidelines, as are all the buyers, your team. We appreciate you letting us back onto the floor here at the United Fishing Agency auction. For now, we're going to send things back to you.
Time now to take a look at what's circulating online. Scientists in Egypt have unwrapped a 3,500-year-old mummy. And what's even more amazing is they unraveled it without even touching it. The remains of Pharaoh Amenhotep were discovered in 1881 and far too fragile to unwrap by hand. So researchers used computerized tomography to look inside. Findings show he was about 35 years old when he died, and there are no wounds to show the cause of death. The scan also revealed 30 pieces of jewelry preserved under the wrappings. He reigned in 1525 BC and was pharaoh for just over 20 years. And for a look at what else is trending online, here's Jonathan.
Thanks so much, Mark. Let's move on to our Good News Now segment. Jim Mendoza introduces us to an Eva Beach woman who's going pro in soccer.
Oh, Karan! Chardonnay Karan!
As a soccer player at the University of Oregon, Hawaii's Chardonnay Karan set records. She played in more matches than any Duck and was drafted by the pros higher than any UO soccer player ever.
I remember running back and forth in our living room, and I was just like, Kansas City selected me, and I started crying a bit.
Kansas City selected Chardonnay in the second round of the National Women's Soccer League draft. Her game is the product of hard work.
It's kind of funny because I played multiple sports, and soccer was a sport that I wasn't really good at.
That served as her motivation from her earliest days on the soccer pitch through her standout stint at Campbell High School and into college. Her family has learned to never doubt her desire.
She told me from the get-go that I'm going to University of Oregon, watch me. And she did it.
Chardonnay Karan wearing number 4.
Chardonnay just finished her career at Oregon. She could have opted for the draft last year, but came back to play one more collegiate season. Aside from her family, her teammates are her biggest cheerleaders.
My phone was blowing up for 4 days. Even till this day, people are still messaging me, and yeah, they're just very supportive and just very loving. So I appreciate them.
She leaves for her first pro training camp in February.
I know Kansas City is looking for people to score some goals, so that's definitely one of my priorities, and just helping others score, so just assisting, and just the little things, the basic stuff.
We hope to get to go watch her play live, but probably just on TV for now until we figure it all out.
Chardonnay hopes to one day play for the U.S. women's national team, and she wants to help grow the sport and inspire young girls to never give up on their goals.
Thanks so much, Jim Mendoza. We'll see you at 4.